Welcome back, you beautiful people. Today we are doing another episode of the RCP. That's right, the Real Collective Podcast. You down with RCP? Yeah, you know me. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, and share with anybody who think might find value in this content. And if you're interested in scheduling a private consultation, you can do so with the Calendly link below. And we'll just get right into it. We're going to talk about some facts. FAQs, not FACTS, facts. But they might actually also be facts. So FAQs on the buyer side, and we will have a sister episode where we talk about some FAQs on the seller side. So today we're going to talk about some buyer side FAQs. Take a little break in the middle, and then we'll get into some deeper FAQs moving forward. So without further ado, no chance for witty banter between Brennan and I. I'll just jump right into it. First question, what does it cost as a buyer to use a realtor? That's a bit of a loaded question because at first glance, it costs zero for you as a buyer to hire a realtor to work on your behalf. The reason is the compensation to the buyer's agent is filtered from the seller to that buyer. So what happens typically is the seller will employ an agent, and they will pay that agent, a typical commission rate, and that commission rate will be split with the buyer's agent who brings the buyer to the property. Now, the argument can be made that without a buyer, there is no commission due. Oh my goodness, needed to do some vocal exercises before recording this podcast. So technically, without a buyer for the property, there is no commission due. And as a result, some people make the argument that the buyer pays the commission in their purchase price. So their purchase price, let's say they buy a house for $600,000. And let's say, for example, it's a 5% commission rate that's being paid. Well, it's a $15,000 commission. Typically that gets split between two agents. So one agent will get $7,500, the other agent will get $7,500. The buyer could say, well, to hire an agent, I'm paying $7,500 for that service. The difference is if that buyer went to the seller's agent directly to buy the home, the seller and the agent still have an agreement in place that the seller is going to pay the agent $15,000. So, you're still as a private individual or as a buyer, you're still going to be paying, that amount, right? The commission doesn't disappear. There's this really big misunderstanding of people thinking, oh, well, if I just go directly to the seller's agent, then I'll get a deal. And what we found is that's typically not the case. When you hire your own representation, and like we said, it's essentially, you could look at it that it's free. When you hire your own representation, you end up paying less than when you go to the seller's agent. And the reason is the seller's agent is legally obligated to get as much money as they can for the seller. So I think that's a big myth that we sort of need to uncover and unpack, is that going directly to the seller's agent will not be a benefit to you, the client. So that's the first fact, and the answer to it is probably a little bit longer than what you can find on our website. Of course, if you want to have a look at some of these, you can always go to realcollective.ca/resources/facts and have a look through what all of the pre-printed answers are. I'm not going by the pre-printed answers so much as I'm going by my experience. So next question. can my realtor give me information regarding properties from other companies? Yeah, we can. Thankfully, because we're members of the multiple listing service, the MLS, it allows us to pull data from all other brokerages. So we are brokered by RE/MAX. We can access information from other companies, Royal LePage, Century 21, other RE/MAX brokerages, Keller Williams, whatever, the agency, all the different brokerages that are out there in the world, Engel and Volkers. We can pull all the data from them, Fair Square or Grapevine or Comfree, any of those brokerages, unreserved. We can even pull data from their listings, okay? And we can give you information on all of those properties. The one type of property that we have a bit of a harder time getting information about is what they call a FSBO, a for sale by owner, FSBO. That's somebody who just puts a sign in the front lawn and says for sale. It's a little red sign that you can buy at the hardware store. And I think I've represented buyer clients at least twice in buying a legitimate FSBO who doesn't have an agent, who doesn't have what they call a mere posting service, which is one of these FSBO companies that will post on the MLS, but they're not at all on MLS. And what we do in those instances as agents is we help our client purchase those properties, and then we ensure that we're negotiating for their best interest. And oftentimes, there won't be a commission payable, but you'll have to, like we said before, you'll have to include the commission amount that you're paying back into the purchase price. So if you were going to buy that house, chances are if it's a FSBO, they might not understand true market value. So they might be selling you a house that really should be worth $450, but you're able to buy it for $400. Well, to pay your buyer agent to help you go through the process, you might have to add, let's say, for example, $10,000 to that purchase. So in reality, you'd have to pay $410 for a house that's worth $450. But you get someone who knows how to negotiate, who covers your bases, who's doing the paperwork for you, who's ensuring that you're protected and covered and legally bound and legally protected so that nothing can come back and get you, right? The role of an agent isn't just to help you negotiate, but it's also to help keep you out of court if that ever comes to pass. And thankfully it hasn't for any of our clients, and I don't knock on wood. I hope that we never get there. Next question is, what if I find a property on my own? If you find something that's on MLS, then of course just reach out to your realtor. We'll help guide you through the rest of the process. A lot of our clients who do buy houses find them because they find them on their own. Either they're outside of the search criteria that they originally set up and they're starting to get frustrated, and then they go and they start to look outside of that original search criteria, and they say, hey, I found this house. And we say, wait a second. You said that you didn't want a house that didn't have an ensuite. And, oh, well, you know what? We were having a tough time, so we decided that we would forego needing an ensuite in the home. And as a result, they found this property that the realtor didn't send to them. So the other way that you might be able to find them is if you're driving around a particular neighborhood and you see a coming soon sign, just snap a photo of that coming soon sign, text it to your agent and say, hey, I was on this street and here's the realtor's contact information. Sometimes we can get in before the property goes on MLS and go and get you a steal of a deal without having to compete. Okay. And then we'll get all the information for you so that your bases are covered. Next question, what type of information will my realtor need from me? So any information that you have to start the process, typically your driver's license to prove that you are the person who you say that you are. If there's somebody else involved in the process with you, like either a parent or a spouse who's going to be helping, or a child who's going to be helping with your purchase, you will need their information as well. And then we'll start to need, what are your hopes, your wants, your dreams? How many, bedrooms do you need in a house? How many would you like? How many garages do you need in a house? Or do you need a garage, right? How many bathrooms? What about the basement? What style and type of home are you looking for? Where in the city do you want to be? Do you want to be closer to work? Do you want to be further from work? I don't know, work from home? And we're going to narrow down your search. Further to that, we're also going to need eventually at some point, so we might as well get it done sooner rather than later, your financial status. So how much money do you have in the bank? How much, are you able to write a check for 10, 20, 30, 40, $70,000 as your down payment or your deposit, for the house? What is your current financial situation? Are you able to acquire a mortgage for a home? Do you need help with acquiring a mortgage? So the sooner we get going with the financial information, the better position we can put you in, because we've had it in the past where a client will walk into a house and say, oh, great, this is it. This is the home that I want, only to realize and do the financial stuff after that the financing for them for that home won't be approved, which is a real letdown. So having a really good sense of what you want, what you can afford, and who you are is pretty important at the outset of that process. Next question. Can I go to an open house without my realtor? And the answer is, yeah, of course you can. You just pop into the open house. If you already have a realtor who's working with you, then that's great. You just pop into the open house, you drop a card, and you say, Sean Tasse is my realtor, or, some member from the Real Collective is my realtor, or whoever it is. And what happens in that instance is you won't be followed up. You won't be harass isn't the right word, but the agent who's hosting the open house will reach out to us. We'll reach out to your realtor directly, so that you don't get that feeling of being like, oh my goodness, these guys are just like really knocking down my door. So yeah, that is the first section of FAQs. Hopefully you found it valuable. I probably talk too fast when I'm here by myself. Nevertheless, as always, feel free, please, if you're finding this information helpful, to share it with a friend who you think might also find it helpful. Subscribe to the channel to keep on top of all of this information, and to see new properties before they come to MLS. You get to watch the video walkthroughs before they launch live on MLS. And of course, hit that bell for notifications. So when a new place comes up, you can ding that bell. And if you would like to schedule a private consultation, whether you're considering buying, whether you're considering selling, whether you're considering both buying and selling, whether it's a home or a condo, the Calendly link is below in the description on YouTube. Of course, if you're not listening to this on YouTube, you can check out our YouTube channel. You can also download this if you want to listen on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll have a quick word from our sponsor, and see you right back on the flip side.
This episode of the Real Collective podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back, you beautiful people. We are discussing buyer FAQs. Hope you like what you saw and heard there in the intermission. As always, if you're liking what you're hearing, feel free to share with anybody who might be interested in this information. Of course, if you like what you're seeing, and subscribe so you stay up to date with all the information. If you'd like to schedule your own private conversation about your personal particular situation, you can do so with the Calendly link below. And without further ado, we'll just jump right back into some buyer FAQs. So the next one, and this one is also found on the website, is how can I find out about new properties? Of course, what we'll do is we'll set up a automatic search for you, and that will allow a robot to send you properties that match those criteria that you set up. And we can accommodate your situation, whether it's via email, via phones. Clients with email capacity, like I said, can receive these automatic updates. Sometimes we're also able to find properties before they hit the market. And you, as a private individual, might not see that. However, when we know exactly what it is that you want, we can put you in touch again with some of those properties before they hit the market. Now, it almost ties into another FAQ, which is finding, is it possible to find off-market properties? And the answer to that question is yes. And at the Real Collective, we're not able only to do all of the things that we just described about, upcoming properties or coming soon properties that are listed with realtors, but we're also connected within the investor community, which means that it allows us to find you what are called assignment purchases. Those are houses that have been bought by sort of not house flippers necessarily, but house wholesalers. So what they do is they buy houses at a wholesale or discounted price directly from the owner. And oftentimes those are distressed houses. And what they'll do is they will sell the purchase agreement to the buyer. Now that purchase agreement will typically be sold for a price point which is lower than fair market value, but is higher than their purchase price that they bought it for. So they make money on the margin between the amount that they bought for and the amount that they're selling it to the purchaser for. But the amount that the purchaser is buying it for should theoretically still be less than fair market value on MLS. So there's an opportunity to buy a house if you're looking for an investment, whether it's to flip a home or a house that you'd like to use, as an investor and buy something for less than fair market value. There is the opportunity to do that, and we are connected with a number of companies like that service not just the Ottawa area, but essentially all of Ontario. So that's some off-market properties that are unique to us with the Real Collective. Another question, and now we're going off the website questions. Another question that people often will ask is, what's a good and upcoming area? Where should I buy now so that in 5 or 10 or 15 years, people, my property will go up in value? Of course, the three top areas that typically see growth throughout the city are the Glebe and Westboro and Rockcliffe. Those neighborhoods always tend to go up in price. Those are sort of the three premier areas. They covered that on a previous episode. However, a lot of the secondary markets are starting to see growth now that might not have been foreseen, let's say 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. So some secondary markets include Arnprior, Brockville, Cornwall, Smiths Falls, Perth, Kemptville, and also some other areas to the east, Limoges, Vars, Navan. And so those are sort of the places that were up and coming, where I think that we're going to see more growth, and where I believe, and I've shared this on multiple occasions, I don't know if ever on the podcast, but I believe that Ottawa is going to see growth in the south end of the city. And the reason is, originally when we were built, we were a logging community, Bytown, as it was called, if you didn't know that. And along the river is where everything grew around, right? The Parliament buildings are there. And then Ottawa sort of started to build out around that. You see Vanier, you see, what's now torn down at LeBreton Flats. But, all of that area was sort of, the workers would live there, and then the bosses would live in Sandy Hill and Centertown and all that kind of stuff. And that was originally how Ottawa was created, and it was all built around logging. Now becoming more of an international city with 1 million residents and all that sort of stuff. The main point, or hopefully the main point, is growing more and more towards using the airport. And so we've got a big boom that happened in Barrhaven. We've got Riverside South, and we've got Finley Creek. I think, I could be wrong, but I think that area, that gap area between Finley Creek and Riverside South will all fill in together so that people can have closer proximity to the airport. I think there will be more and more value to that moving forward. And I think that is the next sort of place to go. So your Finley Creeks and your Riverside South. I know that the city has a plan to install a new subdivision, a new suburb in the sort of unfinished area around Leitrim and east to the 417. And so that will come down the road. And I think that's, again, an indication that there's a lot of value to being in the south end of the city more and more, where the airport will work as this sort of central hub that things grow around, versus the, downtown core being by the water. Of course, it's super pretty up there, but I think a lot of people will be driven to, moving south. Further down south and sort of out of the Greenbelt. Same thing sort of happened on a smaller scale in Orleans, if you look at places like Avalon and how that continues to grow further and further south. So that's what I think. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again, but that's my guess. The other question that people don't ask because they don't typically know is, what does fiduciary mean? A realtor is required to provide fiduciary services to their client. And so what does that mean? Layman's terms, let me break it down. You are talking about doing for your client. As a realtor, I am doing for my client what I would do for myself if I was going through the process of either, in this case, buying a home. Okay. And so we as realtors are legally and ethically obligated to do everything for you as the client that we would do for ourselves if we were going through that process. So we have to legally be loyal to you. We owe you loyalty. We owe you confidentiality. If you tell us something and we go and blab that to another realtor, then technically we are not fulfilling our fiduciary obligation to you, our client. Okay. And there's a lot of nuance to that. And there's a lot of, agents who might not understand precisely what that means, but it is very important to keep your confidentiality. Another one is accounting. Okay. We have to ensure that we're clear about exactly what the costs are to you up front. And that brings me to another FAQ, which is, what are the closing costs? So I'll get into that in just a second after I finish the fiduciary obligations here. Full disclosure, we must tell you everything, fully disclose everything that is in our knowledge, and we have to ask the right questions so we can get all the information. Whether or not you ask us the questions, we have to ask the questions of the selling agent to be able to pass that information on to you. Full disclosure and obedience. If you tell us to do something, we have to do it, provided that it is legal. Now, if we think that it's a silly thing to do, we will tell you, hey, I think that's a silly thing to do. But if you say, I don't care, do it anyways, we are obligated to do it anyways. That is full obedience. And then, of course, reasonable care and skill. So we have to, as professional agents, we have to, at least reasonably care for you and what you're doing and be reasonably skillful. And I think that just means more than the average person. Of course, there's different skill sets, there's different skill levels for all agents that are out there. And it's not just about how long they've been in business. A lot of times it's how many different situations they've been in. I'm currently a level 50 mage. Just kidding. I don't know what level I'm at in terms of being a realtor, but I consider myself to be relatively skilled at this profession. So I typically argue that I can do my job better than 90% of the other agents that are out there. And of course, it's the same with most of the team. We've spent a lot of time doing training and building all of that sort of thing. So that is fiduciary obligations. The next question, extra closing costs. What's involved at the closing table? You have to go and meet with the lawyer. And of course, what your what your down payment is going to be for your house, whether you're putting 5%, 10%, or 20%, whatever the number, 100% down, you'll know what that is. But what about the extra closing costs? What else is involved in that purchase? Okay. Now, the amount that you're going to put as your money down, you've already made your deposit. Okay. When you purchase the house, you've made your deposit on the home. You've already made that. So let's say if you're only putting 5% down and you've given let's say you're buying a $800,000 house, 5% of that is really quick math, $40,000. And if you've given a $20,000 deposit, you owe another $20,000. Okay. So your deposit goes against your down payment. But the extra closing costs include your land transfer tax. And a really quick and incorrect math way of doing this is using 1% of your purchase price. So if you've bought an $800,000 house, chances are your land transfer tax is going to be about $8,000. It'll probably be more because, like I said, that is a very imprecise way of calculating. There is a very precise way of calculating it. And somebody, I'm sure in the comments below, is going to say, actually, the exact amount of land transfer tax to pay on an $800,000 house is this. And they're probably right because they took the time to calculate it and I did not. However, the other closing costs, of course, will be your legal fees. So a lawyer will charge you anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 to process your transaction. And then they will also charge disbursements on top of that. So the disbursements include title insurance, legal fees, and they're weird. They add up. They're like $35 for this and $150 for that. And you kind of lose that in the minutia. The disbursements should not be more than probably $600, right? So those are your extra closing costs. Sometimes you might have to pay something extra weirdly on closing, like a survey or something like that. But most of it is pretty much your legal fees, your disbursements, land transfer tax, and of course your down payment. Another question that a lot of buyers ask is why are the sellers selling? And the answer to that question can be a whole bunch of different things, and oftentimes doesn't even matter. So why are they selling? Not a great question to ask, but I think the more important point is why buyers might be asking that is because they're trying to gauge the motivation of the sellers so that they can put themselves in a stronger position to negotiate. The other question is that we hear often, what's the market like? And that changes. That changes from the type of house that you're looking at, what's going on in the world right now today. Right now, currently, as I'm recording this video, we are in a bit of a different market. Things have changed from a frenzy to just more of a standard seller's market, which is a little bit more manageable for all of us as agents. But it changes. And the neat thing is, it changes based on the type of home and property you're looking for. So if you're looking for a certain type of home and property, it might be a completely different situation. And even if you're looking at the same property, you might find a completely different situation for this house than for this house. And there's no rhyme or reason as to why it looks and feels different. It is a very odd and interesting market that you cannot currently paint with a brush. And hiring a professional, knowledgeable agent is going to, put you leaps and bounds ahead of trying to sort of do it on your own or something like that. The other question that people ask, and again, this is a question that's a little bit more current now, is can I really buy a house, with or without conditions in my offer? And again, when the market was hotter, you might have had to fulfill some of your conditions in advance of submitting your offer. So getting your mortgage financing approved before you submit your offer, doing your home inspection before submitting your offer. Now, and again, in some instances, you might be able to get away with not fulfilling your conditions in advance of submitting your offer and having an accepted conditional offer. So, it changes all the time. There's lots of different things to consider. And as a professional agent being in this market, we know it is changing. It is diverse. It is robust. There is a lot of stuff happening. And oftentimes we'll have to shift on the fly, right? We've got to pivot. And so that's it. And then, of course, the last one, this is going back to the website. What if I'm unhappy and I want to switch realtors? First, let the realtor know. If you've got a realtor who's been working for you for a while, let the realtor know that you're dissatisfied with the service, and see if there's a way that you can work forward. I think it's important, to see if there's a way to maintain that relationship. If ever, we're working for you at the collective and there's something that isn't going right, then maybe it's just a communication bit. Maybe there's something that, you had some expectations that we didn't uncover, and we'll have a conversation and see if we can fulfill those expectations. If we can't, then we can. It is a mutual agreement, so we can mutually choose to terminate it as well. It should never feel like you're in handcuffs to be working with a realtor. You should always feel like, hey, this is something that I enjoy doing. So if that's the case, of course, first have that conversation directly with your realtor, and see if there's a way to work it out. So this has been a conversation about buyer FAQs. I hope that you found something interesting and helpful in here for you. As always, like, subscribe, share, download us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, so you can listen to my voice, my soothing voice in the car. Check us out on YouTube. On the YouTubes, you can also click all of the links in the description, including links to other stuff that we've discussed today, other videos that we've discussed today. The Calendly link is down there. And of course, you can keep up to date if you're subscribed to the channel about new properties hitting the market before they go to MLS that we've got listed. So as always, enjoy the rest of your day, and hope that you enjoyed this, and keep it real, collective.